This is a recording from our 30-minute snack room bite-sized learning series focusing on flexing your communication style for impact. In this video, we'll review how to understand why sometimes your surefire approach works and sometimes it doesn't. Visit our YouTube channel to watch the full video where we cover topics like how to customize your message, motivating others, and communication and conflict.
All right, so we're going to start at the beginning here, which is about flexing your communication approach. And that's really so much of what today and this morning is going to be about. So why does that surefire approach work sometimes and not work other times? And what we find is that, and kind of surprised me, is over the years in working with people, is when we would introduce tools, whether that's a Myers Briggs, and some of you may have had the opportunity to work tools like a Myers Briggs Type Indicator, or any number of different tools that are out there because there's so many. And when we introduced those, the big aha for people was not everybody thinks the way I do. Not everybody approaches the world the way I do. Not everybody makes decisions the way I do. And that was like a huge aha, which was kind of surprising to me, but I guess not so surprising, right? We tend to think people think the way that we do. And when we think about communication, it's sort of like a language, right? And so if we think, let's say I speak English and you speak Spanish as our primary or our native languages, but I'm pretty good. And let's say I'm at least conversational or maybe even fluent in Spanish. It might make it easier for us and our messaging can be clearer if I speak Spanish, right? That's your native language. I'm really good at it. Let me speak your language. And then we're going to have better and stronger communication, right? It's kind of simple as far as a concept goes. And so that's how we want to think about this, is how do I speak their language? But it goes so far beyond language as we know it. It goes into how do I gather information? How do I need to hear information? How do I process information? And as I mentioned, we've got different tools and instruments that you might have used, and it really doesn't matter which one you've used, because to me, they're a framework for getting us out of our comfort zone and thinking a little differently and paying closer attention to what the needs of others are. And bottom line, we want to speak in a way that they understand, and we want to use words that work for them. So I'm going to use the Myers Briggs. We're agnostic in terms of instruments. And some of you have been through Myers Briggs, some maybe not. And I'm not going to use it by all the titles, all the headers, and give you a whole lecture on the MBTI. But I'm just going to use it as a way for us to think about how we communicate with one another. So we might think about where we get our energy. So some people get really energized by being around other people. So how do you think they felt during the pandemic? It was like the worst experience of their lives. They were so lonely. They were like, how do I find people? Can someone just put a mask on and go have lunch with me 6 feet away, right? It was just so difficult. How do you think some of the people who really prefer to be alone or with a few close friends, that's how they get energized? For them, the pandemic, they're like, this is a dream. I am so happy. There's nobody buzzing around my office, poking in 10 times a day, saying, how was your weekend? What movie have you seen? What do you have to do? Because I had things to do and I wanted to get my work done. So it doesn't mean we're antisocial. It just means we get energized either by being around people, or we get more energy by being alone. And if you're more, maybe what we call extroversion, more extroverted, if you're the one who says, hey, to your partner, hey, let's go to that party. Doesn't that sound great? Let's go. There's like 100 people there. It's going to be so fun. And if they're in a relationship with somebody who's maybe more introverted, who prefers to be alone or around a few close friends, you can imagine the response you might get. Are you kidding? Do I have to go? How long do we have to stay? Who do I know there? And again, not that they're antisocial. It's tiring. They can turn it on, but at the end of the day, their battery's drained a little bit. So we want to be aware of this. And we're going to talk about how it comes into play. You'll have some people who maybe process information differently. Some process it externally. They think out loud. Have you met those people? So they're like, let's see, you ask them a question, they go, well, I could paint it blue, but yellow might be nicer. It's kind of a happy color, but no, maybe a soft blue would be good. And they kind of ramble on, and at the end, they say what they mean. So We process differently, and others kind of go inside and they think about it, they process, and then they say what they mean. So we're kind of different on that front. How we take in information can also be different. Um, we've all been to scientific presentations, right? Most of us have seen some sort of presentation, and if it's not science, it's something else. And you might notice some people on their slides have everything in a 3-point font. It's like teeny tiny, tons of stuff is crammed on that slide. There's everything that they could possibly communicate on one slide and lots of data. And they do that because they're driven by data. They take information in through data. They like data, they like practical reality, they like their feet firmly planted on the ground, because that's how you make a realistic decision. But there's other people who like big picture and possibility thinking. Where's this going to take me? What's the opportunity? Why does this matter? What are we creating here? Give me some context. So you can imagine when we're communicating in our own preferred style, I might be communicating in a way that's not compelling at all to you. If I'm a big picture thinker and you come in with a slide with 10 tons of data and never give me context, I'm probably asleep in the back of the room and you lost me 5 minutes in, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how we flex our language to really address some of these things. Finally, last couple points, how we make decisions. Some make their decisions on logic and fairness, and others maybe on values and emotions. So you can imagine when it comes to big decisions that we need to be making, it can be really challenging because we're looking at it from very different perspectives. And then how we like to approach our work. If you've been to a lab bench, I can always tell which type somebody is, because some will have 5 experiments going simultaneously and turning to somebody across the lab and saying, hey, can I borrow these reagents? And the other person says, seriously? Like, how long have you known you were going to run this experiment? Why do you need to borrow? You should have ordered this long ago. And they have a very process-oriented single experiment running start to finish. And when it's done, we clear it out, we move to the next thing. So we work very differently. And you can imagine, as we're trying to work together, how we have a different work style, but also our expectations of one another can be really different. So I've pointed out some of these differences, but differences are great, right? Because it lets us look through different lenses. We get different perspective. We see things that we otherwise wouldn't have seen. It helps us with our blind spots because we've all got our blind spots, and no type or style is better than any other type. They're just different and they're beneficial in different ways. And you'll see how understanding some of these differences can really help us in not only communication, but in preventing or resolving conflict as well. So that's where we're headed. So you can imagine my surefire approach, if I'm always talking to other people who like a lot of data, so I'm in my lab and we're all talking and we're presenting tons and tons of data, and then I go into a board meeting where I have board members who are very big picture and really like to have, ideas and where's this taking us, I might lose that audience if I come in and communicate in the style of my fellow, my fellow coworkers.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out the next snack room sneak peek from Flexing Your Communication Style for Impact, or scan the QR code to watch the full video.